It was a gloomy October afternoon in 1943 when Margaret Henderson pushed open the heavy wooden door of Edgar Cayce's office in Virginia Beach. Her trembling hands clutched a yellowed photograph of her German shepherd Duke, a dog that had changed her life in ways she could never have imagined. The air was thick, charged with that electric tension that precedes a storm, and Margaret knew she was about to discover something that would forever change how humanity viewed animals. Duke wasn't an ordinary dog. Over the past 3 years, he'd shown behavior that defied all known logic. He knew when bombs were going to drop during air raids, guiding Margaret to shelters minutes before the sirens went off. He'd cry inconsolably 3 days before any family death. And most disturbing of all, he'd stare intently at empty spots in the house, moving his head as if tracking something invisible walking through the room. On that fateful afternoon, Margaret didn't know she was about to witness one of the most extraordinary prophecies ever recorded in history, a prediction that only now, more than 80 years later, we're finally understanding in its terrifying entirety. If you want to find out what Edgar Cayce revealed about our pets that day, something that might completely change your perspective on the dog or cat next to you right now, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because this story will leave you breathless. Edgar Cayce wasn't just any charlatan. Known as the Sleeping Prophet, he'd performed over 14,000 documented psychic readings over 43 years of activity. Renowned doctors from all over the country sought his consultations after seemingly impossible cases were resolved through his trance visions. What made Cayce unique was his surgical precision. In 1929, he predicted the stock market crash 3 months in advance. In 1935, he described an experimental surgery with perfect anatomical details that would only be developed 15 years later. Entire hospitals kept secret records of his diagnoses because his accuracy rate was close to 95%. But on that October day in 1943, something was different. Cayce went into a deeper trance than Margaret had ever witnessed. His eyes moved rapidly under his closed eyelids, as if he were watching a high-speed movie. His hands trembled slightly, and beads of sweat formed on his forehead, despite the cold. When he finally began to speak, his voice had a different tone, deeper, older, as if it wasn't Edgar Cayce speaking anymore, but something far more ancient and profound. I see 4-legged creatures walking between 2 worlds, Cayce began, his voice echoing strangely in the silent office. They carry within them a soul force that humans lost millennia ago. They are parallel travelers, simultaneously navigating physical reality and dimensions you don't even suspect exist. Margaret held her breath. She'd never heard Cayce speak about animals like this. The dog you know as Duke, he continued, is one of the first to fully awaken. He doesn't just sense the future. He sees it, touches it, experiences it as if it's already happening. His consciousness operates on multiple timelines simultaneously. Cayce's voice grew more intense, almost urgent. Listen closely, because this is a prophecy for times to come. An era will arrive, still in this century to be born, when all animals will awaken to their true capabilities. They will become the psychic guardians of Earth, capable of perceiving not only future events, but human intentions and emotions even before you recognize them in yourselves. They will form a planetary consciousness network, Cayce prophesied, communicating through energy fields that human science hasn't yet discovered. And when this awakening is complete, when all the animals on Earth are connected in this invisible network, they will give humanity an unmistakable sign. Margaret leaned forward, her heart pounding. There will be a moment, a single moment in time, when all the animals in the world will fall completely silent, simultaneously, for exactly 3 minutes and 33 seconds. This will be the sign that they are ready to assume their role as humanity's spiritual guides. When Edgar Cayce awoke from his trance that day, Margaret Henderson was pale as a sheet. But what she didn't know was that this prophecy wasn't just about the future. It was about something she'd already witnessed firsthand. For the next 3 years, Margaret kept a detailed diary about Duke. Page after page documented behaviors that defied any rational explanation. Duke didn't just predict bombings, he knew exactly where they'd fall. Margaret discovered he never took her to shelters unnecessarily. Every time Duke alerted her, bombs truly fell nearby. But there was something even more extraordinary. Duke began reacting to Margaret's emotions even before she felt them. When she was about to receive a letter with bad news, Duke would become restless hours before the mailman arrived. When Margaret was going to have a particularly happy day, Duke would wake up in the morning with his tail wagging frantically, even for no apparent reason. Most impressively, on March 15, 1946, Margaret wrote, "Duke spent the entire morning staring out the kitchen window, whining softly. There was nothing out there. At 2:30 p.m., he started barking desperately and ran to the back door. I followed him, confused. 5 minutes later, a car accident happened exactly where Duke had been looking that morning. He'd seen the future 6 hours in advance." These diaries remained forgotten in an attic for over 70 years, until in 2019, Margaret's grandchildren discovered them while cleaning out the house. When they were finally analyzed by researchers, they confirmed something terrifying. Duke wasn't just predicting random events. He was systematically mapping patterns of future probability, as if he had access to a temporal dimension humans didn't even know existed. And most disturbing of all, the records showed that Duke wasn't alone. Margaret had begun to notice that other animals in the neighborhood displayed similar behaviors, as if they were all connected to some invisible network of information. In 2018, something extraordinary happened at Stanford University's quantum physics lab. Dr. Sarah Chen, one of the brightest minds in modern physics, was conducting experiments on electromagnetic field fluctuations when she discovered something that would forever change our understanding of animal consciousness. During her studies on how subatomic particles behave in states of quantum superposition, Sarah noticed consistent anomalies in her data. Whenever there were animals near the lab, especially dogs and cats, the quantum wave patterns would change in a predictable and measurable way. It was as if the animals were literally altering reality at the quantum level just by being present, Sarah explained in her research published in the Journal of Consciousness Studies. They seemed to be tuned into frequencies of information that we didn't even know existed. But the real breakthrough came when Sarah discovered Margaret Henderson's diaries about Duke. The patterns Margaret described perfectly matched her laboratory findings. Animals weren't just perceiving the future. They were interacting with it at the quantum level, navigating through multiple timelines simultaneously. Sarah then developed her revolutionary theory. Animal consciousness operates at a different quantum frequency than human consciousness. While we are stuck in a linear perception of time, they exist in a state of temporal superposition, where past, present, and future coexist simultaneously. This discovery wasn't just academic. It was about to explain a series of contemporary events that had been happening around the world, events that traditional media preferred to ignore. In March 2021, a cat named Yuki in Tokyo went viral on Japanese social media for a reason no one could explain. 3 days before the 7.1 magnitude earthquake hit the northeast region of Japan, Yuki began displaying bizarre behavior that was filmed by his owner, Akiko Tanaka. The cat would climb onto the roof of the house every morning and stare intently to the northeast, meowing in a specific rhythmic pattern. 3 short meows, a 2-second pause, 3 long meows, a 2-second pause, repeating this cycle exactly 47 times before coming down. When the earthquake finally happened, Yuki climbed onto the roof one last time, looked to the northeast, and never repeated the behavior again. But Yuki wasn't alone. Later analyses of social media posts revealed that more than 3,200 domestic animals in Japan had displayed identical anomalous behaviors in the 3 days leading up to the earthquake. They all looked in the same direction. They all followed similar rhythmic patterns. On the other side of the world, in Cape Town, South Africa, something even more extraordinary was happening. In September 2022, a group of dolphins began appearing in False Bay, creating bubble patterns in the water that formed perfect geometric structures, hexagons, Fibonacci spirals, and complex fractal shapes that remained visible for exactly 11 minutes before dissolving. Dr. Michael Roberts, a marine biologist at the University of Cape Town who studied the phenomenon, was baffled. In 30 years of studying dolphins, I've never seen anything like it. They were clearly communicating something, but through a language that transcends anything we know about animal communication. Most impressively, the dolphins' bubble formations mathematically coincided with fluctuations in Earth's magnetic fields recorded at the same time by the local geomagnetic observatory. It was as if the dolphins were visually translating invisible information from Earth's magnetic field. And then, reports started coming in from all over the world. Dogs in Germany simultaneously stopping barking for exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Cats in Brazil positioning themselves in perfect geometric formations in public squares. Horses in Mongolia galloping in synchronized circles without any human command. What began as isolated cases quickly transformed into a global phenomenon impossible to ignore. In hospitals around the world, dogs trained to detect cancer began demonstrating 99.7% accuracy, a rate superior to the most advanced medical equipment. But it wasn't just that. They began detecting diseases that hadn't yet manifested physically, identifying microscopic cancers months before any test could find them. At Massachusetts General Hospital, a golden retriever named Apollo caused a stir when he began consistently sitting beside patients who would develop heart complications within the next 48 hours. In 6 months of observation, Apollo predicted 23 cases of imminent cardiac arrest with 100% accuracy. In England, cats at a Liverpool nursing home began behaving like psychic guardians of the elderly. They positioned themselves beside residents who were close to death, not to comfort them, but remaining in constant vigil for exactly 3 days before the passing. Most disturbing was that the cats knew not only when, but also the exact time, always withdrawing precisely 17 minutes before death occurred. Horses on farms in Argentina began refusing to enter specific stables, even if they were their usual resting places. Later investigations revealed that all the buildings rejected by the horses had serious structural problems that were only detected by engineers months later. It was as if the horses could perceive the structural integrity of the buildings through some sense that humans don't possess. In zoos around the world, elephants began communicating through infrasonic sounds at frequencies scientists discovered to be identical to human brainwave frequencies during deep meditation states. When these sounds were played for people in a laboratory, individuals reported vivid visions of future events related to climate change and natural disasters. Migratory birds began altering their traditional routes in seemingly random ways, but later meteorological analyses showed they were surgically avoiding areas that would be hit by severe storms weeks later. They weren't just predicting the weather, they were predicting weather patterns that even the most advanced supercomputers couldn't calculate. The phenomenon became so prevalent that the World Health Organization secretly created a special department to catalog these events. The project, codenamed Global Animal Consciousness, documented over 47,000 verified cases of extraordinary animal perception between 2020 and 2023. But no one was prepared for what Marcus Thompson would discover in his small apartment in Portland, Oregon, a discovery that would finally provide the scientific explanation for everything that was happening. Marcus Thompson never imagined that his pet rabbit, Einstein, would forever change our understanding of animal consciousness. Marcus was a retired theoretical physicist working from home, writing articles on quantum mechanics, when he noticed something extraordinary. Einstein seemed to be solving complex mathematical problems. It all started when Marcus was working on a particularly difficult equation about quantum probability fields. Frustrated, he threw the paper on the floor and went to make coffee. When he returned, he found Einstein sitting in front of the paper, tapping with his paws in specific sequences. Marcus initially found it amusing, but something made him pay attention. The tapping sequence corresponded exactly to the solution of the equation. Intrigued, Marcus decided to test his rabbit. He placed a series of simple mathematical problems on the floor: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and observed. Einstein consistently indicated the correct answers by tapping the right number of times with his right paw. But when Marcus presented advanced calculus problems, something even more surprising happened. Einstein stopped tapping and began moving around the room in specific geometric patterns. When Marcus mapped these movements, he discovered that the rabbit was literally drawing in space the graphical representations of the mathematical solutions. He was visualizing abstract concepts of quantum physics in a way that even Marcus hadn't thought of. It was as if Einstein had direct access to the fundamental laws of the universe, Marcus wrote in his diary. He wasn't calculating the answers, he was reading them directly from the fabric of reality. Marcus then developed his revolutionary theory of quantum animal consciousness. Animals don't process information in the same linear way humans do. Instead, they access what he called the quantum information field, a dimension where all possibilities exist simultaneously. They don't predict the future, they perceive multiple parallel realities and identify which one is most likely to manifest. This discovery explained everything: why animals could detect diseases before symptoms appeared, predict earthquakes, and even solve complex mathematical problems. They were operating on a level of reality that humans had lost access to millennia ago. In October 2024, something happened that completely validated Edgar Cayce's 1943 prophecy. It started subtly, isolated reports of synchronized animal behaviors around the world. But it quickly became impossible to ignore the magnitude of what was happening. On October 15th at 3:33 a.m. Universal Time, something extraordinary occurred. Dogs in Tokyo began howling in perfect unison. At the same time, cats in Paris positioned themselves in circular formations in public squares. Horses in Patagonia galloped in synchronized circles. Dolphins in all oceans simultaneously surfaced, creating sound waves that could be heard for miles. But this was just the beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, animals worldwide began demonstrating behaviors that suggested a planetary communication network being activated. Elephants in Africa coordinated their movements with elephants in Asia, separated by thousands of miles. Migratory birds altered their routes to form fractal patterns when viewed from satellites. Dr. Chen at Stanford recorded quantum fluctuations never before seen. It's as if Earth's quantum field itself is being reorganized, she reported. Animals aren't just communicating, they're rewriting the fabric of reality at the subatomic level. Zoos reported that animals of completely different species began behaving as a single collective entity. Lions lay peacefully beside zebras. Predators and prey completely ignored their instincts, as if a higher consciousness was controlling their behaviors. And then, at the turn of 2024 to 2025, at 11:50 p.m. on December 31st, exactly what Edgar Cayce had predicted 81 years earlier happened. All the animals in the world fell completely silent, simultaneously. Not a bark, not a meow, not a roar, not even the buzzing of insects. For exactly 3 minutes and 33 seconds, the entire planet experienced absolute animal silence. Acoustic monitoring stations around the world recorded the same phenomenon. Total silence from the animal kingdom. When the silence broke, something had permanently changed. Domestic animals around the world began demonstrating levels of intelligence and perception that defied all previous scientific understanding. They had become, exactly as Cayce predicted, the psychic guardians of Earth. Now, as you watch this video, pause for a moment and look around you. If you have a pet, observe them. Really observe. Have you noticed changes in their behavior in recent months? Moments when they seem to know something you didn't? Instances when their eyes seem to be seeing something beyond what you could perceive? Edgar Cayce's prophecy has come true. Animals have awakened to their true capabilities and established a planetary consciousness network. They have become the intermediaries between our limited reality and the higher dimensions of existence that we lost access to so long ago. But here's the question that changes everything. What now? What do we do with this information? How do we respond to this new reality where our four-legged companions may be more attuned to universal truths than ourselves? Perhaps it's time to completely rethink our relationship with animals. Maybe they aren't our pets, but our spiritual teachers, our guides to levels of consciousness we've forgotten how to access. Perhaps humanity's next evolution depends not on our technology, but on our ability to listen and learn from the creatures who share our planet. The Animal Consciousness Network is active. They are ready to guide us. The question is, are we ready to listen? If this story made you question everything you thought you knew about animals, Leave a comment sharing your own experience. Has your dog or cat ever displayed behaviors you couldn't explain? Share your story with us and subscribe to the channel for more content that will expand your consciousness about the mysteries surrounding us. Because if there's one thing Edgar Cayce's prophecy taught us, it's that true wisdom often comes from the most unexpected sources. And maybe, just maybe, the answer to existence's greatest mysteries is right there, looking at you with those deep, knowing eyes you always thought were just an animal's. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to access more stories like this. The question remains, are you ready to see your pets for who they truly are? Your spiritual teachers in